Vgchypervoice, episode 46. This is a show all about Pokemon's video game championship series. I am your host, Steven Morioka, and today I am joined by Alex Underhill.
Hey guys.
And Chuppa Cross.
Hello.
Welcome everybody. We're going to be talking about the few events today for our show, or a few things in our show rather. We're going to be covering the Madison, Wisconsin regional that happened over the past weekend. We're also going to be talking about the Pokemon 2019 press conference, which Pokemon announced some of its news for its franchise moving forward in the upcoming year or so. That is something that happened last week. And we're also going to be talking about what news we saw in the Pokemon Sword and Pokemon Shield Direct that was actually earlier this morning for us in North America. And we just want to preface this for everyone out there that if you do want to avoid any Sword and Shield spoilers, we're going to let you know when we start talking about those, because those will be closer to the end of the show. So we'll provide you with information about that. Now, we're going to go ahead and jump straight into it, the Madison Regional here. So all three of us were there participating in it. Chuppa, you also managed to finish in the top 8 of that regional. So,
spoilers.
I guess I should have warned people about that. But
I'm just kidding.
So, people, it's safe. Don't worry. That wasn't Sword and Shield stuff. It's just the regional. It happened already.
You're spoiling the regional now, though. What if they haven't seen it yet?
Anyway, yeah. So, the regional happened. All three of us were there. Let's just go ahead and talk about our experiences there and what happened.
So, a real quick rundown of where we all ended up, though. I finished 4 and 3, the worst of us three, at 32nd place, so I just barely made the cutoff to get championship points. Steven did better than me, unbelievably, with how unpracticed he is. Finished 5 and 2, so props to Steven. I think only finishing 4 places.
Unbelievably, you say?
Yeah.
Come on, my fundamentals can carry me.
I thought we were going to be a little friendlier.
My fundamentals can carry me here, come on.
You were the worst of the 5 and 2s. Were you not?
I mean, by resistance, yes, but resistance is stupid, so...
So you were the worst of the 5 and 2s, right?
Agreed. No, that's a fact.
Then, of course...
You can't lie by the standings, but anyway, Chuppa went 6 and 1 during Swiss, so he managed to make it to top cut. Chuppa, tell us about you. So you played against Colin in that quarterfinal. Tell us about that match and I guess your run during this regional.
Yeah, so the set against Colin was actually super fun. I really wish it had been streamed, but I was on stream against Tommy the round before, so I understand why that didn't happen. Maybe especially after the set against Tommy, you didn't want to have me on again. It was just a really fun matchup. I think it was around neutral, but relied on the ability to make, kind of bigger plays than I'd had to in most other matchups of the tournament, and it went I won game 1, I'd say pretty clean. I think that's fair to say. Game 2, Colin had a good start that got even better after a particular critical hit, but he played well and was able to win game 2. And then game 3, he went with a lead that I wasn't expecting, and just had momentum for most of the early game. It was just a really fun set.
So Chuppa, I did notice that it was kind of a longer round, one of the latest matches in that round. In fact, I think I watched the stream round that in that top 8, and I came over, and for quite a while longer, you and Colin, your set continued. A lot of players were starting to gather around and kind of peek in, just wondering. We couldn't really see the match, but we were just checking emotions, gauging emotions to see how the set was going. And I saw that it ended after a very long set. What I wanted to ask you about was what was the rest of your tournament like, and I guess what were your emotions like after that match?
The rest of the tournament, let me think. The first 2 rounds were relatively clean wins, I'd say, and then I lost against Jonathan Melendez, who was also running a Luna Groudon team. He had Persian on his when I did not, and a strong Trick Room mode that was difficult for me to respect. And then after that, I think I had mostly what I can call pretty clean wins, 1 game 3, and then the set against Tommy that you saw on stream. That was a little silly. generally, I felt like my team was like really solid. I was just performing super well.
And so what I did want to ask you about was how did you come about this team? We've seen this kind of build since the beginning of the format. It reminds me a lot of the Trick Room team that I ran in Moon Series, where I had 5 of the same mons or so. Groudon wasn't quite primal yet, and there was a Serena over the Ments, but I believe basically what I'm trying to say is what made your team different than what we saw earlier in the format when this team was a bit more popular?
Yeah, I forgot that it looked so much like yours. I guess you can say that team like kind of set the foundations for what Lunadon teams would look like for like, I mean, it's 4 months later and they still look relatively similar. This team was basically like something that Gavin had built and used something very similar at Santa Clara Regionals. He had done a decent 5-2 with it. It's a little bit different though, because it's like its form of positive speed controller, like Salamence and Finny, when on yours it was just the double Trick Room mode. Oh, and of course I do have my own Trick Room, but I guess the way I was wording that should imply that Trick Room isn't like one of the bigger parts of the team. It's more just like, oh, Stakataka comes against Xerneas, and Stakataka uses Trick Room.
And so that's actually not too surprising to hear that you were finding success in Gavin teams, because I know that that's something you've been known to do in the past. Actually, back in I think 2016, maybe not. I don't think it's limited to 2016, but just we love.
Oh no, it's not limited to 2016 at all.
But we love to draw parallels to the 2016 format, just because we're in this legendary format again with megas and restricted legends allowed. But yes. It seems that you and Gavin seem to enjoy similar builds. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Part of what drew me to this was just that it was made of, like, very normal Pokemon. I'd say, like, the Groudon and Luna are pretty... I guess, like, the Luna moveset is a little unusual, but they're both just, like, pretty kosher Pokemon. Tapu Fini, Incineroar, Salamence, all things, like, that I'm pretty familiar with after a few months of playing the format. And then Stakataka as well, just also pretty normal. None of the Pokemon were too out there. They're just very solid Pokemon that fit together in a way that's like intuitive for me to understand. And I really appreciated that for a team that I was going in with like not too much practice on.
Now, I wanted to ask, I think one of the stronger aspects of these 6, or I guess just the core 3 that I'm looking at right now and honing in on, is that you have Groudon, Lunala, and Stakataka. And it seems that Groudon, a lot of teams that rely on Groudon of their own use Groudon as their only way to beat Groudon, which sounds silly. You can use speed control for this. However, I think that your team really capitalizes on it, is the ability to just use Wide Guard. And then your Groudon can kind of just safely click Precipice Blades while their Groudon is forced to Fire Punch. And it's not going to be threatening your Groudon. It might threaten the partners, but it's not clicking the button that it wants to be clicking most, which is that Precipice Blades. And so, would you say that was kind of an important part of the strategy of your team?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think the thing that a lot of Groudon teams overlook is the fact that Groudon is like more or less walled by Stakataka if it's spamming Wide Guard. And let's say you're like Precipice Blades, Fire Punch, Swords Dance, which is like maybe the most common set, but it's certainly what I used. That Groudon is just kind of walled out by Stakataka. Stakataka gets to spam Wide Guard, and Groudon ends up being deceptively bad against it. And then the enemy Groudon just gets to throw Precipice Blades at your team, and it's not fun to deal with. Wide Guard is just like such a great move for responding to Groudon, and like it's pretty darn good against Kyogre as well. Like when I played Colin in top 8, his was Water Spout, Origin Pulse, Ice Beam, so I could do things like switch in my Groudon and Wide Guard, not fear a random Scald pointed at it.
Yeah, it's funny to think that you have a Pokemon, or I guess 2 Pokemon on the field that are very, very weak to Kyogre's water moves, and yet Wide Guard completely negates it, which is the risk you run when you run Water Pulse, or Water Spout and Origin Pulse together with no way to deal with Wide Guard. But very cool that you were able to do so well with this Lunadon team. I think we saw quite a few Lunala in the top cut, all on very different looking teams, which was really cool. always paired with Kyogre or Groudon in this tournament. And I guess one thing that we've yet to talk about was the winner of the tournament in Paul Chua, who won the tournament a year ago, last year in the 2018 format, and once again is winning with Groudon Xerneas, but this time partnered with Mega Salamence, Tapu Lele, Incineroar, and Amoonguss, which is a slight variation of one of the more popular teams in the format. If you saw a Tapu Fini over the Tapu Lele, you would say that it's almost the equivalent of the new Big Six, where you take just 6 of the most used Pokemon, slap them all to one team.
He said it.
Hey, man. I mean, I just don't want to have to say Xerneas, Groudon, Salamence, Tapu Fini, Incineroar, Amoonguss every single time I'm talking about this team.
Yeah,
so I just call it the new Big Six.
No, I know. Yeah, I know what you mean.
I don't like to call it Big Six unironically because of how much weight that phrase carries, just because of like the team that Big Six was in 2016, and like I wouldn't say the new version of it is like it really compares to that in terms of like its usage or its viability. It's just like a very strong, very normal team. But I do totally get why you'd call it Big Six. It's like maybe the most used team in the format, even if it doesn't dominate usage the way old Big Six did.
No, you're definitely right about that. And then another parallel that I like to draw with this team is that as we often saw, people started subbing in Cresselia or Bronzong into Big Six in 2016. We see that Paul Chua did sub that Tapu Lele in another psychic type, performing a very different role in terrain control and in its own way speed control, which is kind of neat about what Tapu Lele does. Holding the Choice Scarf, with Magic Room, it can either negate items or it can just take KOs on threatening Pokemon like Gengar or other things that might be weak to Fairy like Salamence or Rayquaza. So neat that Paul was able to win with a slight variation on a very standard team. It's, I think, one of the most interesting things about watching him play from top 4 on is that he played the same team in both top 4 and finals in Colin Hire and Michael Manzano. They had the exact same teams, but that didn't mean that Paul just did the same thing every time. If you watched what he did, he used pretty much a different strategy in all 4 matches. And what we've come to know Rayquaza Kyogre teams for is that they often tech very hard for Xerneas Groudon so that they can lock down that matchup and then spend the rest of their Pokemon worrying about other things. But Paul showed that he had 4 different ways to beat Rayquaza Kyogre teams, and that they're definitely not ready for the top Zerndon players.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Just think about that. 4 different approaches to defeating something that's supposed to be heavily prepared for your core, right? So that's really important here moving forward, is that these teams can see Paul's performance as sort of a guidance on how to solve these I guess counterpick issues or these checking issues. And I guess another thing to note here is how this was the only Xerneas in the top cut, and Paul, under Paul's piloting here, he managed to win the whole thing. Really neat to see him pull out the repeat regional win. So that's 2 in a row for Madison. And like another thing to point out is you just look at that top 4. Like that is a phenomenal lineup there of some incredibly strong players. So like it's not really surprising there. Now, what are some of the other I guess standout Pokemon you see around in this top cut? What's the most surprising thing that you see here?
I think for me, maybe it has to be Whimsicott appearing on 3 of the top 8 teams.
So I did want to mention that you do bring up a good point, that the top 4 is a lot of veteran players, which I think is really cool to see. The other thing, back to your original question though, is the Pokemon that stands out to me is probably Whimsicott. And while it's kind of unfair to pick it, because while it has 3 usage across the top 8 teams, but 2 of the teams are exact clones from the team that Kimo Nishimura, I'm referring to his Twitter handle. Looking at all these Tapus on the screen is getting my mind all mixed up. But Kimo Nishimura, the team that we saw him finish in the top 8 at Berlin with, Actually, no. This is the variation that he's been using since then, because he did not have Whimsicott on the team at the time. Why don't I just plug the real builder of the team, which is Raghav, because Raghav's the person who built this team. Raghav Malavia, Moody Man. He added Whimsicott as a Pokemon just for dedicated speed control, as well as the ability to outspeed Rayquaza and hit it with a super effective Moonblast. The priority Encore, able to stop Xerneas from setting up Geomancy safely. A lot of cool things, and just being a grass type too, to ignore the redirection of the popular Amoonguss. I think that's that's my pick for Pokemon that stands out the most.
Yeah, so it seems like both of you seem to really pick out that Whimsicott from these teams here. I would go with something like Serena for mine as what stands out here, because again, like, it's not the most common right now in the Ultra Series, so it's good to see like some players are still seeing success with that Pokemon. This was on Cedric DeRucci's team, who placed in 7th here to round out the rest of the top cut. We had Michael Lanzano in 2nd, Wolf Glick and Colin Heyer in top 4, and then along with Chuppa in top 8, we had Alyssa Smith, Cedric that we just mentioned, and Hector Vargas. So congratulations to all these players who made top cut here. And then now we're going to head and talk about the Pokemon 2019 press conference after this Madison Regional here, and really just a quick outlook on what they were planning to do for this next year. You know, what's coming up for the future for the franchise. So in this press conference last week, they had announced a few different things here. So this was Pokemon Masters, which is a new mobile game for mobile for your phones. And it's really just you get to challenge some of the more iconic trainers, champions from all the games we've had so far. So not super relevant for any of us competitive players at the moment. And it looks like it's just a thing for fun in general. We also have the announcement for Detective Pikachu 2 for Nintendo Switch. So that's going to be a sequel to the original game, which was out on, I want to say 3DS, I think that was a 3DS game.
Yeah, it was 3DS.
Cool. Thank you for that. And we also, there's a new Pokemon Go Plus, as well as Pokemon Sleep. So clearly the Pokemon Company International is very concerned about all of our well-beings.
Well, wait. Don't sell it short. I believe it was a Pokemon Go Plus Plus.
Yeah,
the plus? Not just the plus?
It's like plus the word and then plus the symbol.
Yes, because the original one was called the Pokemon Go Plus.
Did not even catch that. Jeez. Okay, so yeah, Pokemon Go Plus Plus. So we got a double plus here. And then Pokemon Sleep, which is going to like track your sleep, I suppose. So that's neat. That'll help some folks who need that. Other than that, probably the most relevant announcement for us is that there's a new feature coming called Pokemon Home, which is going to be the connective integration of Pokemon Go, Pokemon Bank, Pokemon Let's Go, Pikachu and Eevee, and all connecting to Pokemon Sword and Shield. So this is essentially going to be the way to transfer all of your Generation 7 stuff and prior to the future, to Generation 8, to your Sword and Shield games. And I imagine most of these are going to be one-way trips up into Pokemon Home.
I mean, I kind of wanted to talk about Pokemon Sleep a little bit.
Oh yeah, I think talk about the other games would actually be fun, if briefly.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, comment on what you thought about this whole announcement here.
I was in college. I was very interested in studying my own sleep, so I got like a Fitbit, basically from a friend. And so that was kind of fun to track. I'm wondering what Pokemon Sleep is going to do, like, to make it into an actual game, as opposed to just another way to track your sleep with a Pokemon Go accessory. And I do think that just the name and idea of this whole thing is hilarious. And then my thoughts on Pokemon Masters is that not just like the Fire Emblem Heroes equivalent of a Pokemon game?
No, they're both gacha games, but okay, yeah, I think that's probably an okay comparison. Yeah, basically, it's another gacha game. I don't really know what to make of the battling that we've seen in it so far, because it looks on the simpler side.
Kind of like Go.
Yeah, probably a fair amount let go.
Okay, that's cool. But so, both of you think like Pokemon Sleep's a game?
I really don't. I'm really not quite sure. I think it's so. I think you wake up and then there's Pokemon that will appear on it that you catch in it. It's really, really hard to say.
We don't know a lot, but I believe the idea behind it was you sleep and like track your sleep and get rewards in the game for it. And that's why I thought it was a game. But I could have been totally wrong.
Okay, maybe it's your subconscious playing. I guess whether it's a game or not, I feel like that game's gonna be a total snooze fest.
Oh,
Or
Anyway, so Pokemon Home is really like the big seller there. So it's especially when we expect to get a regional dex for the new Sword and Shield games on Switch. It'll be nice to have some of the old Pokemon who you can help breed with eventually once that it gets released to help out with your competitive Pokemon once we get to that point.
So one thing I want to comment on there is that we're not going to be getting it when the new games come out. We're going to have to wait like a few months. I think Pokemon Home was touted as like it'll come out early 2020, which makes sense. But that means for the first few months of Sword and Shield, we're not going to like have parents that we can bring over from previous games. So we're going to be losing out on especially easy breeding. We're not going to have a select few egg moves. It's kind of unusual starting like that.
Yeah, Chuppa, you make a really good point there. It's actually very similar to how we started Sun and Moon. We didn't have, I guess, that update for Pokemon Bank to get into Generation 7 for a while. I remember, like, we were waiting, and we were probably like 2 or 2.5 months without any support from Pokemon Bank from older generations to help with breeding, at least.
I think it's a little bit disappointed that we're not like going to be starting out with it, mostly for breeding's sake, but losing the moves is kind of weird too. Like the fact that in 2017, Fake Out Salazzle, Kurth Gigalith, we didn't start out with, and then all the way back in 2014, like Parasong Gengar was missing, and that's a huge deal. I think just lacking certain moves is kind of unfortunate. It would be best to start out with everything.
I think it'll be interesting to see that mid-format wave that the release of Pokemon Home causes, as we saw with like Pokemon like you had already mentioned, or Tailwind Drifblim. It was kind of cool in 2017 where suddenly so many Pokemon's viability was increased or changed just because of the mid-release of these moves. It's almost like a somewhat comparable to the format changes we have mid-season now, though not nearly as drastic. But I'm excited to see what that'll bring. I think I look forward to that mid format change if that ends up being the case.
Yeah, it is fun to have things like suddenly change up a little bit, and it's generally just increase in viability. Like Drifblim in particular was just something that, like, until a few months, it wasn't a Pokemon, but then it was, and it did amazingly for a while.
Yeah, had quite an impact once it splashed onto the scene there. But I feel like we can. I think we're ready to move on to the Sword and Shield stuff. But I do want to make one more comment about the Madison Regional, just on a personal note. So this was my first tournament back in nearly 2 years, right? And one of the takeaways I took from it is that I was just able to have fun again, right? Near the tail end of the 2017 season, I wasn't really having fun playing the game anymore, especially in tournaments and all that. But it was really good because I was still able to have fun while losing. So, I just took those as learning lessons and I wouldn't panic after game 1 losses or after just a general round loss from in the tournament as well. So I think it was a really important takeaway that I was able to have fun again. Fun while losing, and that, I'm back. I'm going to be here for a while to stay, and, glad to be back. It was fun to see everybody at the tournament again, so nice to say hi to old friends and to meet some of the new ones as well. It was a fun experience.
It was good to have you back, Steven. It was also fun to see all of the players that have kind of joined the game since your leave be kind of unfamiliar with who you were, and having like both you and your mom there. A lot of people were like, who are these people, and I just got hear a lot of comments, and I was like, oh, you don't know them? Like, it's just so funny to me, because it wasn't that long of a break, but VGC, like the players just keep coming in waves, and while it may not seem like it, the game does continue to grow, and we get a lot of new players joining the scene who aren't going to be as familiar with a lot of the veterans that we still do see around. So I'm happy that you had a fun weekend coming back.
Yeah, I hadn't realized that you and your mom were going to be there, so it was a pleasant surprise to see you guys. It's really important that Pokemon just have a sort of like recorded and accessible history, so that someone could like look at old tournament results and say like, oh hey, Stephen Morioka, that guy played back then and he still plays now. That's cool, but it's a little bit difficult to do that.
Oh, I very much agree.
Cool. Well, yeah, thanks so much for the kind words there from both of you. Yeah, it was a really fun time. So, yeah, looking forward to what's to come in the future with Pokemon Sword and Pokemon Shield coming up. And we're going to see what happens with the rest of this 2019 season as well. So, very excited. Now, so for all the listeners out there, what we're planning to do here is to, we're going to do our outro right now in the middle of the show. So, once all this is done, we're going to have a little break with some music, and then we're going to start talking about Sword and Shield. So if you want to avoid spoilers, you can just listen to the next minute or two of this and then turn the show off and come back to it later on once you don't care about spoilers anymore. But if you do, for those out there, we're just being considerate of you. We're going to do our outro now and then transition to the Pokemon Sword and Shield Direct to talk about some of our impressions and what we saw in there for the future. So, for everyone out there, you can find our show on YouTube, Podbean, iTunes. You can email us at vgchypervoice@gmail.com. Send us your feedback and questions. A new platform we're now on is due to the feedback of some of our listeners. And as well as we've been working on this slowly over the last month, but we're also now on Google Play. So you can find us there, find us on that platform. Just you can download the show, listen from there, and you can also join our group on Facebook and follow the show on Twitter at the Hypervoice. Now, we're also just going to give our personal Twitter accounts here. You can follow me at Super Morioka. And Alex, where can we follow you?
At Lexicon VGC.
And Chuppa, where can we follow you?
Chuppa VGC.
Perfect, everybody. So this is the first part of our show without Sword and Shield, but we hope you have all enjoyed it. We've had a lot of fun, and we hope you stay tuned for more of the Hyper Voice. And for those who are sticking around, we're going to have a little break here, and we'll be right back with our discussion about Pokemon Sword and Shield, the Direct on June 5th. Alright, welcome back everybody. I'm Stephen Morioka. I am here joined again by Alex Underhill and Chuppa Cross. We're now going to talk about the Pokemon Sword and Shield Direct that occurred on June 5th, 2019. We got boatloads of information, some new Pokemon revealed, and we're just going to give you some impressions here just to warn everybody there are spoilers ahead. So if you want to avoid those, turn off the show right now. I mean it, right now. Otherwise, come on and enjoy it and join us here. Now, so this was about 15 minutes long today, and we got a lot of neat things coming out of this Direct. So we got our new mechanic, we saw our cover legends, we saw some new Pokemon. So, Chuppa, Alex, what are some of your first impressions from the information we got today?
I think the what we learned was roughly what I expected to learn, beginning of the game Pokemon, the grass type. What's it called? The flower? I forget its name.
Oh, that's Gossifleur.
Okay, Gossifleur. We learned Gossifleur and Wooloo, which are just Pokemon that you catch at the start of the game. I'm sure Wooloo evolves. It's probably just our normal type, our Patrat, our Rattata. And then we learned a few others, like the crow that gets you around. We learned the legendaries, which was like definitely expected to see those. It had been like a little bit too long without them. And then getting to learn the mechanic was really big as well.
So the one thing that I kind of expected us to learn, but we didn't, was the middle evolutions. But otherwise, I do agree with middle evolutions of the starters, that is. But otherwise, I do agree with Chuppa that pretty much everything seemed about right for what we're learning at this point. Getting an introduction to a couple of the new Pokemon, getting to see the covered legends, getting to see the new mechanic is very, very cool. That we already can kind of start thinking about it, theorying, wondering what it's going to mean for us going forward. And my thoughts really quick are, with all the new Pokemon revealed, I'm a big fan of pretty much everything. I like all the new Pokemon so far. I'm a fan of all of them.
That's awesome. So yeah, just getting some of the listings for those Pokemon. During the actual Direct, they didn't really announce too much about abilities or some of their typings, but that all this information is actually available on Pokemon's website that you can look up. I'm just going to briefly run down this here. So, Gossifleur is a grass type that evolves into Eldegoss, who's also a grass type. They have the abilities Cotton Down and Regenerator. Cotton Down's actually a brand new Generation 8 ability that when that Pokemon's attacked, it drops the opponent's speed by 1 level. And Wooloo's a normal type with the abilities Fluffy and Runaway. And Corviknight's a Steel Flying type. When I first saw it, I actually thought it was Dark Flying, so that was kind of surprising. So shares similar typing to Skarmory and Celesteela, with the abilities Pressure and Unnerve. And funnily enough, there's a screenshot of Corviknight at level 50, and you can see its HP value at 166. So we can't really gauge too much information based on that, but if you do the math, its base HP stat is in the range between 59 and 106. So it doesn't tell you too much, but it's something.
That's a range, all right.
Yeah, the funniest thing about that is like that if the middle of that is what, like 80 something. That's smack dab average HP. I guess if anything, that says that it's like probably a basic Pokemon that, or maybe not a basic, but it's not going to evolve any further. So cool.
I'm kind of in the same camp as Steven there, where I did think it was going to be a dark type, and I almost thought it might be like a Delmise situation where they make it like almost 3 types, or the ability to use stab on another type. I also think it's funny that they just took this super, super scary looking bird and said, actually, he's a taxi. He's your Uber. He's going to be picking you up and lifting you around and taking you from place to place.
Yeah, this is gonna be a kind bird, despite being somewhat ominous, right?
It's like how ravens are trained to deliver messages, but actually now they're just delivering people when they're as tall and huge as this bird is.
Fantastic. And to round it out, we also saw Dreadnought, who is a water rock type, which I was surprised by. Like, I thought it was like a ground or a dragon or something like that, but water rock, with the abilities Strongjaw and Shell Armor. I mean, to me, both Wooloo and Dreadnought look like candidates that are going to be evolving, so they'll have stronger forms. And then we also got to see the cover legends.
I think Gossifleur looks like it could evolve too.
Wait, is
into,
Gossifleur?
Yeah, we know that, into Eldegoss, right?
That was a joke.
I wasn't sure if you meant like Eldegoss evolving, which, I mean, I guess if they showed
I meant Gossifleur.
Yeah.
And then something I do want to say right now, though, is, since we're just throwing our opinions out there, Gossifleur is a lot better looking than Eldegoss, and I wish they just kept it as Gossifleur.
Hey,
Gossifleur is cool.
I think they're both cool, but I agree, Gossifleur is like probably the cooler looking one.
Eldegoss just reminds me a lot
Eldegoss is fluffy.
Yeah, exactly. It reminds me a lot of the fluffy cotton grass types that we've seen in like Jumpluff and Whimsicott.
Can never have too many.
Yeah, it's a little poof ball there. Looks cool. And then we also got to see finally our cover legends. We've seen their like
head.
Their head in the logos behind the words Sword and Shield. You got that blue sword and the red shield there. We got introduced to, I'm going to butcher these names, but we'll eventually figure this out. But Zacian and Zamazenta, something like that. So these are wolves, and one of the Zacian, the one for sword, is carrying a sword in its mouth, and then Zamazenta, the one for shield, just has a big shield around its mane. So they both looked pretty neat. Did both of you have like standout choices, or did you have choices on which game you were gonna get before this happened, or did one of these wolves sell you on either game?
I have no idea which I'm going to get beforehand. It's just like, largely it comes down to the Pokemon that
yeah,
are
we're
in
gonna
the
have to
game.
learn more information about the version differences. But I was sword before they showed these, and I think I'm still a sword guy just because like dog holding a sword. I mean that's pretty cool. Come on.
Dog holding a sword is way too cool not to get. Dog that its face is kind of just a shield. That's not as good. That's like Bastiodon.
I do wonder though.
Yeah, that's true.
If like some people are talking about like, why is he just holding the sword? Why isn't the sword integrated into his design? And I'm just wondering if the shield one takes the sword dog's sword, like then what? What do you have left, sword dog?
See, you can't just spoil their third version like that.
That's true. Oh
Yeah.
no.
That they're gonna keep that the third one in the trio a secret for a little bit longer. Maybe we'll get that revealed at the World Championships, maybe later. But it was clear based on that end of the direct there that they are having something prepared for that. To answer the question previously, my own question actually, I knew right when they announced Sword and Shield, it's like, oh, Shield, I want Shield, and I'm still with that. Like, I really like Zamazenta's design, but yeah, I'm sticking with Shield, and I'm very confident I'll be getting Shield come November. Speaking of which, we also got a release date, which when they said that, I literally gasped because I just wasn't expecting it already. I mean, within the timeline of a game's release, you should kind of expect it, but I just wasn't ready for it. So I was like, whoa, November 15th. That's crazy. That's 5 months away.
So that's really exciting. It's also cool that they basically already announced the date of the upcoming international. It's going to be November 15th, 2019, if they want to stick to the style that they did previously with, I think, Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon.
Yeah, it's I kind of hoped it was going to be October. Maybe that was a little optimistic. November is pretty far away. Not unreasonable as a release date at all, but it's another 5 months of waiting without having this great game in our hands.
Yeah, those will be 5 long months as well. And yeah, I'm not sure what this means for when the format switches. If that's going to be December or January, we'll see what happens there. But yeah, that's going to be right around holiday season, so good timing for them in terms of sales numbers. And let's see, I kind of want to go back to that new mechanic. So the Dynamax mechanic that lets your Pokemon grow to be very large. They get the website just states that they get a boost in powers. Their attacks turn into like these max attacks. So there's like max lightning. I saw there's max strike. There's max overgrow, or was it something called something overgrowth maybe? But it was something that lasts 3 turns. It can be used once per battle. In the direct, once I saw the girls had a little bracelet on, I was like, whoa, she's got a bracelet. That's gonna be the new mechanic. There it is. And so yeah, it's just like we don't really have enough information yet to kind of gauge what this is gonna do to the game, really, and for us competitively. But it's very interesting to look at, what kind of Pokemon you're gonna be using this new mechanic on.
So I'll just kind of like regurgitate my thoughts on Dynamax really quick, but the overall summary is that I'm not a big fan. I feel like we're kind of getting a combination of Megas and Z moves in that you take one Pokemon and make it big and kind of red and kind of see-through, and then for 3 turns it can use stronger moves, which almost seem reminiscent of Z moves, and I'm worried. I don't think it'll end up being something that is crazy overpowered. But if they are like Mega Pokemon using Z moves for 3 turns, that could be very problematic. However, for us in the VGC world, it might not end up being too huge an issue because we run Protect so often that with it lasting only 3 turns, it might be as simple as just protect, eat 1 hit from their Dynamax Pokemon, and then protect. I also think the name is really rough. Oof. Megas,
Yeah,
Zeros are much better
the name
names.
is
Now
so
we have
goofy.
Dynamax, like this just sounds like we're going full anime here.
Yeah, Chuppa, what are your thoughts on this Dynamax?
I'm optimistic, but I can see them being really stupid. When you said Mega's a Mega that gets to use a Z move every turn for 3 turns, shivers went down my spine. So what I'm like most afraid of is like, let's say we get Garchomp in the decks again. Not too crazy, who's in the past 2 regional decks he's almost guaranteed to be a top Pokemon. What if you just give your Garchomp the big boy item? It's like, oh no, and now I get to ground, like single target ground type, move things for 3 turns, and it's just like, maybe you pop that when you run out of, flying type partners, or your Salamence or something is forced off the field. Like, that's something that I can see being scary. The fact that, like the normal type one, we know that lowers speed. Other types are probably gonna have side effects like that too. I hope they're not too wild.
Yeah, or super broken either.
We don't know if it will be an item or not. We're hoping that it'll be a held item, but if it's not a held item, then we might be able to use it with something like a Choice Band, and then suddenly we're hitting absurdly hard, or we might be able to use a Mega that can Dynamax, which also just sounds crazy.
I think it is very, very likely that it'll be an item, considering like
Yes.
the past 2 gimmicks where. Yeah, I'm optimistic about that much, but like right now, I think it's really hard to say how much of an impact it's going to have.
Yeah, very true. It's very early. This is like literally still day 1 of with this information, so time will tell here. What I do like about it is that it's a little more inclusive for all the Pokemon, because Megas were very kind of like Z moves. Megas were very restrictive in that it was for specific Pokemon only. And Z moves, you could literally use it on anybody you wanted. So I feel like this Dynamax thing is going to be the exact same thing. You'll be able to freely use it on anything you want. I guess like a really nice example of this is Alex. You had a Z move on an Oddish I saw at some point. So
Wait, what?
Yeah, you did that.
I did. I almost won that PC too. If it weren't for those.
But I was spoiled again.
But like, that's the point I'm
Kids.
making here, is that you can still use your favorites with these new mechanics, and Megas were a little bit too restrictive in that sense. But silly I'm saying that, just with the specific Megastones and all that. Anyway, yeah, not too much information on Dynamax, but we'll see what happens when we get more information, right? So I guess one thing to look at is that, again, almost everybody's assuming we're gonna have a regional Pokedex for this upcoming season in 2020 once we get Sword and Shield out. So there have been clips from the trailer, or a lot of Pokemon in the trailers that we've seen kind of in the background or just like roaming around in the game. Speaking of which, like a lot of the Pokemon in there look like it's going to be free roaming. It's not going to be like wild encounters like we're used to. It's like kind of a mix between your standard Pokemon game and Let's Go, where the Pokemon are in the overworld.
Oh, it sounds like most of the game, if not all of it, is going to be Let's Go style. I think there are a few things saying that even in areas like caves was the word that they used, Pokemon would be roaming around, which I'm all for. I didn't play Let's Go, but it sounds fun that way.
I did play a bit of Let's Go, and while that game was just okay, that feature was one of the best things about it, and I'm very excited to see this coming back.
Yeah, the world felt really alive. I played a little bit of the Let's Go games as well, and ultimately it doesn't really matter if your encounters are random, hidden in the grass, or random out in the overworld. It's still random. So, yeah, that's pretty cool. Anyway, what we were talking about is that we have a somewhat of an idea, so far of what kind of Pokemon are in the original Pokedex. So, Cerebi has done a really good job of picking out these Pokemon from the trailers and directs we've had so far. So kind of just looking down this list, there are a number of Pokemon that stand out. You can pick out ones with Fake Out, with your weather changing abilities, who can set up Trick Room that we know so far among our older Pokemon. So things like that I noticed that stand out are kind of like Bronzong or Jellicent, Dusclops or Dusknoir. I saw Tyranitar and Abomasnow in there for weather, as well as the Ninetales with Sun, the regular Ninetales. Hippowdon as well. I see Serena. I saw a Dragon. Hydreigon. There we go. So, I guess there's not much we can go off of because we only know a few of the Pokemon here, but what are some other standouts from this regional Pokedex that you can pick out here?
Arcanine and Gyarados have to be like two of the bigger ones that we've seen so far, and yeah, just Intimidators are huge. So as regional dexes go, I think 2017's was pretty good and 2014's was awful, and one of the biggest issues with 2014 was that there weren't enough like defensive Pokemon in it. Like you had Gyarados, and the next best Intimidator was like Scrafty, and then Salamence, which is not a defensive Pokemon. And then 2017, you had just like a better balance of it. Stuff like Arcanine and Gyarados as well. Seeing stuff like Bronzong and Jellicent is really cool. Just, I don't know, it's important to have Trick Room control. That's another thing that was kind of lacking in 2014, where it was just like Gothitelle very clearly being the best Trick Room setter.
The ones that I could pick that stand out to me would be Snorlax, because we saw how strong Snorlax was in the 2017 season when it's allowed to use its berry for setup like Curse and Belly Drum. And then the other one that I would say stands out to me is not so much so for its competitive viability, but just Charizard being present in the decks. We saw that you were able to get Charizard and the Kanto region starters through normal gameplay in the Kalos region in X and Y, and so they were legal in 2014 with their megas. Without the mega, Charizard's not so amazing, but it's just very interesting because I wonder what this entails going forward. Are we going to see other starters in the format? Like, are we going to see the other Kanto starters? Are we going to see other starters in general being playable?
Yeah. Remember in Sun and Moon, Charizard was like your ride Pokemon, but it wasn't in the Pokedex? I thought that was weird. So, I think the champion, like his signature Pokemon for Sword and Shield, was Charizard, so it's likely it's going to be playable within this game. So, again, likely for this format.
Steven.
And,
Steven.
What?
The champion.
What?
The champion. He's so ugly.
You don't like him?
Oh my god.
Dude, he's got that fit.
Oh my god.
He's rocking it. I think his outfit is really goofy. He's pretty out there, but I don't really have beef with him. I think his lore that he's never lost a battle is stupid. That's the thing that annoys me.
Well, we're going to beat him when you get to him,
Yeah. It's like that lore that they came up with. It doesn't even mean anything.
He's wearing a carpet around his neck. Like, it just looks like a rug or like a towel, and his facial hair does not match his regular hair, nor does it look good. And then he's wearing like shorts over pants or something. I don't know, man. This guy's a goofball.
Oh, hold on. Let's talk about better characters.
Like
I think
Milo?
both. Like who?
Milo?
Oh no! I said better characters, Alex, not the worst character.
He looks fun.
He doesn't have a nose.
That's fine.
You gotta have a nose. I think his design is just like the thing about the champion's design is just like it's kind of goofy. He's got a lot of things going on, but I'm sure his personality will reflect that. Milo just doesn't make sense. He has a tiny head and this enormous beefcake body. He's just really unpleasant to look at. I'm looking forward to beating him in the first gym and just being done with him.
I think that's just what peak performance looks like. And you're just not ready to accept it.
Yeah, honestly, I can't really remember the champion's look right now, but I'll take a look at that later and see. But I'm again kind of neutral with my stance on the champion. But yeah, I'm not a big fan of that lore that he's never lost, because we're gonna beat him, and then it's silly. It's silly, like Chuppa, like you mentioned.
So characters that are a bit better though, like I like the professor, and then her what's the name of the redhead who's like her granddaughter?
It's her it's an assistant, right? Or granddaughter or something. Sonia?
Yeah, they both seem really cool. Like, is the professor supposed to look kind of like the queen? That I'm still not sure about that, but I like the professor and I like the assistant.
That's a nice comparison.
It seems like a lot of people are talking about the assistant looking a bit like a certain commentator in the VGC community, and I think I'm aboard that. It does seem kind of a weird coincidence.
Wait, what's this? I don't know what you're talking about. Who does this? Who looks like who?
Oh yeah, you're a little more out of the loop.
Are you're out of the loop too, Chuppa?
Oh no, I'm saying that like since Steven hasn't been like quite as involved recently, it would make sense that he's not like familiar with the person in question.
Yeah, exactly. Like Lou, the username Lulu the Pikachu. I can't think of Lou's last name, but she's the redheaded commentator for the UK who also has done some Pokemon videos on the UK YouTube channel, like something like how to play Pokemon or some kind of tutorial video.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about then. I don't think they look that comparable, to be honest, so.
I mean, that's what some people in the community are saying, Steven, so you're wrong.
Okay, sure, whatever.
Yeah, the assistant's design is just like, it's good, but it's kind of funny. Like, her code is enormous. It's just like, it's huge.
But she's pretty cool. I think she seems pretty cool.
Yeah, she does. I just wanted to point out a fun fact about the first regional Pokedex we also had in 2011. Chuppa, you had pointed out some of the intimidators from what we saw in the regional, or what we saw in this Galar deck so far. I looked at the Pokemon from Black and White for 2011, and there was Stoutland and Crocodile. I don't think I'm missing anything else because
I'm pretty sure you're not.
Scrafty did not have Intimidate yet, and Landorus did not have a Therian form yet. So that's all you had that season.
Steven, did you play 2011?
Yes, yeah, I played throughout that whole season. Played in the regionals, played at nationals, made top 8 that year, and qualified for Worlds. So, yeah, I did play that year.
And you did go to Worlds?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. How did you feel about not having Intimidate in it? Or not having much Intimidate?
The game was very different back then, so, you didn't really think about it as not having Intimidate or something. You just needed the best Pokemon on your team. And, while it was, valuable, Crocodile did end up making it to the finals of Worlds, on Matteo Gini's team.
Right.
So I didn't feel like it was ever a big deal. I never missed it, to be honest, because that metagame was all around Terrakion, Tornadus, Thundurus, Chandelure, Jellicent, Amoonguss, your fighting types, and also Scrafty, Conkeldurr, Mienshao, all that stuff. So Electros was another big one. Trying to think, there was something else. Did I miss like an important Pokemon in that one?
No, it sounds like you mentioned about everything, but you're right, the game was so different back then. But just like my summary of the Pokemon we've seen so far, I'm optimistic. It looks like a good dex. Like, maybe we'll get Zong and Jellicent, but no Porygon 2 or Cresselia, so Trick Room setters will be, like, not incredibly bulky. I think that's good, but they'll be, like, reasonably bulky.
I think it's important to mention that there's a bike that goes across water.
Wait, it goes across water?
Yeah, it goes across water. Did you see, like, Rotom's coming back within our Pokedex again as a phone this time?
And yeah, that's part of what allows your bike to go faster and go across water.
Yeah,
I'm so excited.
Also, what do you think of
Water
that
bike?
new...
No, Steven. What do you think of the water bike?
It's ridiculous. Of
What?
course
It's
ridiculous.
awesome. It's awesome.
That's a dumb idea. So what? We just don't get to have to surf anymore.
No,
We're just gonna use our bike for everything. Climb up mountains, go down hills, go fast.
If you do a wheelie,
water.
you just take off, and you just fly.
So that we're gonna have a flying bike too. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's all terrain and even lack of terrain. Is air a terrain? I guess it is now.
Oh my gosh.
Water bike. I didn't notice that, but that sounds okay. I can't imagine they'd get rid of like surfing Pokemon though. It's just a really iconic part of the games. Rotom. I'm not excited to have Rotom back on my phone. Rotom. No, it wasn't really a good part of Sun and Moon.
Yeah, Rotom talked too much.
Rotom just led to a bunch of like silly dialogue and
Wait.
I
Has the Pokedex been downgraded to like an app?
Oh.
I
Because it's
guess
like on your phone, and it says, like I'm reading it on Cerebi, it says the Rotom phone is a phone inhabited by a Rotom, which contains your Pokedex. And it makes it sound like you have a phone that has the Pokedex on it, which makes it sound like it's not the entire function of that device. So it's just like, oh, like I just gotta download the Pokedex app and then I can start scanning Pokemon. I think
my
the Pokedex
gosh.
is an app now.
I mean, I guess it's trying to get with the times, right? It's
Oh
just like
man,
an
I wanted
app
to
on your
check it.
phone.
I wanted to scan this Pikachu, but I keep getting an ad. Don't want to pay to upgrade to premium Pokedex.
Oh, and the phone reminds me. I don't know how I feel about the rival yet. We didn't actually see too much of him, so it's hard to say. I don't know. He's kind of just like small Leon, a little bit less goofy.
As long as he doesn't follow in his brother's footsteps, that's fine by me.
Which you know he's going to do. So,
Well, I mean, like, as long as he just, like, his brother's fashion sense.
oh, okay, that's what you mean. Yeah, yeah. Okay, fair enough. So one more thing is how. So there's that new like raid battle thing where you can join other trainers to take down one of the Dynamax Pokemon. That's something that I saw. You know, something that probably would have been influenced and came out of Pokemon Go. Honestly, in that game, I'm not a big fan of the raids. It's one of the few things you cannot do in that game by yourself, and that irks me a lot because I like doing things alone by myself. You know, especially with Pokemon. I like being my own independent trainer, especially for VGC. I'm actually someone who likes training alone, working on everything by myself. So
We don't have to be on the podcast, Steven. It could just be you if you want. Just say
Oh,
the word.
come on, Steven. You have like a mother and brother who are great at the game, and you don't include them in your efforts to get better. For shame.
Yeah, wow.
but yeah. Anyway, that's one of the features I am not really excited about.
I agree. I hadn't thought of that. Like, restricting these to being group things is just, I don't like the sound of that. Hopefully it's something that you'd still be able to tackle on your own, but on the flip side, it's cool that you have the option to, like, work together with people on these. Ideally, even people online, maybe random people. That's fun.
Yeah, so I've seen, this is just kind of a general, like, gaming take, that when people see these online-only features, people start to worry about those who, you know, don't have friends or don't have the ability to access this feature. And it normally just, I think, in my opinion, it normally just depends on the how highlighted the feature is. I guess how important it is in the game. I don't know how prominent it will be in Sword and Shield, these raid battles, but I think it's fun that they give the option for something for you to do with your friends. And I want to have, like, you know, some kind of ways to connect to other players and do something fun together, because we'll all be at VGC tournaments, and it's going to be one more fun thing to do with each other. One thing I wanted to ask you guys, though, and I'll go first, is do you guys have any, like, hot takes going towards Sword and Shield, you know, now that we've seen the Direct, and, like, maybe, like, theories and things? I'll go ahead and start with my thought right now, is I think we're going to get rid of Z-moves. I think that Z-moves will fall off, and they will no longer exist in the Galar region. But I can't say for Megas yet. I think that likely Megas will still be in, but I can see it going either way. But I think Z-moves are gone.
I like that take. I think Megas are almost guaranteed to stay around. I think they're just like, they're popular. Well, competitively, that's a little questionable, but I think just they're cool additions in the game, and I think people generally feel that way. Good point about Z-moves.
Yeah, I'm with both of you there, actually. For Z-moves, I think those were an Alola region only thing. I don't think they're coming back. Because, you know, it's strange to incorporate the Z crystals within this new region, especially with the way Sun and Moon's plot played out. In terms of Megastones, I don't really think it has much to do with popularity, but more than, like, these are actual new forms for a lot of the older Pokemon, so those are things that kind of do need to stick around and will likely be present. I think Megastones will carry on forward into the next generations, and Z-moves probably will be gone, like the two you just mentioned here. But
I'll defend Chuppa here, though. I'll defend Chuppa here, though. I do think it has to do with popularity. I think people really like Megas.
Yeah, Megas are fun.
Dude, Megas are cool.
I mean, yeah, I guess so, but
I mean, like, not in the game, like, I think as players, most of us are ready for Megas to go, and, like,
yeah, in general, right?
I think we all wanted Z moves out because, oh boy. But,
Yeah, but I mean, like, if we're technically speaking, like, the megas, the stones, the megas will probably be staying.
oh, and one more thing I did want to mention is we will definitely find out in the plot of the game why Dynamax exists. But right now, as is, without any information, that's one of the things that I think is making me dislike it so much is I don't know why Pokemon get big. Why Pokemon get big? Why? I don't know.
Well, because they just get to reuse like the model they already have. I think that's like honestly a kind of big like motivator for it. It doesn't require too much extra effort on their part.
I mean, like, in the game.
Oh, in the lore, yeah.
World. In the lore.
Oh, in the lore, yeah.
Why do Pokemon
energy? Energy.
I mean, yeah, energy. They probably eat their vegetables and drink their milk, and your Pokemon always go to the gym.
So is the so are you saying that the Dynamax evolution or whatever, you like touch your wrist and then it just injects them with milk and vegetables and energy, and they get really big and red and see-through?
I guess so. I mean, like, oh, did you know the item's actually called the Dynamax Band? That little bracelet?
But that's the player item, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, because we don't have any kind of confirmation that it's an held item for the Pokemon yet. It should be, hopefully. Did you guys end up having any hot takes?
I'm optimistic about like the decks that we'll get. I certainly think VGC will continue. I don't think VGC is going anywhere, even if like things do change. But it seems like it should be a fun deck. Like, I didn't realize that Bronzong and Jellicent were in it. That's both of those are honestly great news. Just a lot of the Pokemon that we saw today should reaffirm this being a fun deck, even if like we know barely anything about what the new Pokemon are going to be like.
Yeah. I'm usually not a big fan of the regional Pokedexes, to be honest. I like the national Pokedexes a lot better, but just especially with the game coming to Switch, that's something I'm really looking forward to here. So it'll be a fun one, and I'm gonna kind of like put that mindset of mine away, is that like I just don't like regional Pokedexes. So I'm just gonna play it out like as an objective as possible player here. So.
Steven, what's your hot take?
On the game, so what I'm really interested in about the games is like what the lore is going to be for everything. Like all the stadiums, it's the direct mentioned how all the trainers in the region are all about loving the Pokemon battles, right? That to me parallels really a lot of the European soccer leagues there. So it would be European football there for them to be playing in. So. With all this emphasis on battles, I'm just hoping we see a lot of growth in VGC and what this means for the Switch, how we can get more players to be playing in tournaments rather than, kind of just being casuals, but because we want to see the game grow, at least for us competitively. I guess one of my hot takes here is the typings of the wolves, of the cover legends. I think those are going to be, a lot of people have kind of their own expected ideas of what the typings of what they're going to be. I think they're going to be a surprise to us, and we're going to be surprised by what types they actually are. Other than that, really looking forward to be able to like play the game on my TV rather than on on the handheld just in front of me. That's what I'm most looking forward to.
That reminds me of another take that I kind of just thought of now, but with you mentioning how the battles are going to be in stadiums, I think we are going to get a spectator mode. With the way that camera was panning around. Another
like
thing,
in Smash or something?
Yeah, like I think we're going to have some kind of way, like for tournaments, if VGC does continue, that we're going to have some kind of like way for people to watch matches, because people have already talked about it, but with there being only one screen on the Switch, it's going to be an issue hiding information, because your full moveset's shown on the screen. If you're switching to Pokemon in the back, those are shown on the screen. So everybody kind of gets to know more information than you would know about VGC now, that we have with the two screens. And the way that not Rotom, but like that camera that was moving around on the battle, it seems like I'm suspicious, and I think we might be getting a spectator mode.
I'm all for it. That sounds cool. Well, did you mean like the switches? Like someone's gonna be on the TV? Because I just imagined as players, I'm sitting across someone else with a Switch. I have my Switch, and we're both playing in handheld mode, and it's like on the kickstand or something.
I'm talking about for like possible stream matches.
Oh, for stream matches, right? Yeah, that'll be interesting.
I think that's a whole other topic, Steven. What you were talking about, though, I do want to talk about that in the future episode. What tournament setups are going to be like once we switch over to the Switch.
Yeah, it's really hard for me to like make any firm predictions about that because I think Nintendo kind of has a tendency to drop the ball on this sort of thing, and just like instead of changing much, sometimes they don't. Like Smash has a lot of cool things going on, but then on the other hand, you have stuff like Mario Maker having really strange online features. It's just hard for me to expect anything particular. It would be great to have a spectator mode, though.
Yeah, I'm all for the spectator mode. And I guess if you want like an actual hot take here, I think a lot of the Generation 8, a lot of these new Pokemon, one of my hot takes, excuse me, is probably going to be like they're all going to be really bad. I just have this feeling most of them are not going to be competitively viable, and the older Pokemon are going to dominate that format, but we'll see.
Gen 7 gave us, like, most of Gen 7's Pokemon have some kind of niche or relatively good. I think that's a bold take. I don't agree with it at all.
Steven's looking for Gen 6.
That's why it's a hot take, yo.
That's true. That's true why it's a hot take.
Anyway, I think we've covered just about everything that was in the Direct, if not more. Well, we couldn't have covered more. That's not really possible, is it?
No,
yeah,
I don't think so.
I think we're good here. But anyway, so this was our episode here, talking about the Pokemon Sword and Pokemon Shield Direct. This was a lot of fun. We're going to wrap up here. We did our outro earlier, so for everyone who's been listening so far, you've already heard all that stuff on where you can find us. But lastly, we just wanted to thank Chuppa Cross for being on the show. We really appreciate your time here.
Oh, yeah, I appreciate being invited on. It's a lot of fun.
Thank you so much. Thank you to Alex as well. And we're going to get out of everybody's hair here. We hope you enjoyed the show. And once again, we hope you stay tuned for more of the Hyper Voice.
Alola.